recording. All right, man. Welcome to the Parley, Real People, Real Talk. Today I got a great guest, Mr. Shawn Zirger. Most of you guys in the community know him and his legendary throwdowns and all his great accomplishments. In the martial arts. Shawn, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. You're somebody that helped my martial arts growth, and I don't think I spent hours and hours and hours training with you, but the time that I spent with you really helped open my eyes and get me involved in the FMA. So thank you for being here.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
So first thing I want to say is when I think of Shawn, I think of you as like this scholar martial artist, but you're you have this very classy demeanor, but you're also very, very skilled, like real tested kind of skilled. What has been your approach to martial arts when you started training martial arts? Because I'm interested to hear it, because I feel like you have a different approach than most people that I know.
Well, it's funny, when I first got into it, I think I was really, really looking to be able to be flashy, right? Like I was looking for that flash. I was looking for the big kicks and the movie moves and the movie throws and then I also wanted to be effective. Like I always wanted to be effective, because really I got into it because I figured I was going to get beaten up, by the other kids. But the main thing was just the movement. And so eventually when I got into JKD and I met people who could fight, Makoto Kabiyama, he changed my mind about it. And I stopped focusing on the stuff that would have been really lucrative and got me into films. And I started looking at how to fight. So yeah, but my approach obviously has changed over the years. So it's heavily informed by Makoto Kabiyama's JKD. And of course that would be a derivative of Paul Vunak's and his group back at that time in the whole PFS generation. So that got me grounded in what a real street fight was about. And he was a primo ballerina. So he was not just a real kick-ass street fighting badass, but he also knew very well how to move. And he ran his classes in a really interesting way. He ran them a lot like a dance class, where yes, you would learn the movements and you'd perfect the movements, but then he would dramaturge the whole experience. So he would set up what the scenario is, and then you would go and you would try to use the moves. And people would play opposing roles. And so it was always this kind of perfect the thing, and then he creates an environment where you can kind of experience it like it was actually on the street. And so I've been heavily influenced by that. And then I went and I looked at Vu pretty closely and looked at the way he was doing a very similar thing and what he was focusing on. And not long after, I went on to see Rurodan and the legends and basically everybody that emanates out of the Inosanto Academy, which is like Mecca for martial arts in North America, yeah. I think. Yeah, I mean, it just, there's great things happening now, but I mean, like a lot of them started there. And I found after a while that what I had to do, because I was so heavily seminar influenced for the second 2/3 of my JKD experience, because I spent 10, 15 years with Makoto. And then after that, the rest of the time, and I think it's been something like 38 years or something in total. But that rest of that time, I was going to so many seminars. And so I'd have to do the seminar material, remember the seminar material, and then go, how do we train so that we can put this into our fight? Because stuff that you learn at a seminar, it's meant for fighting. But, there's one thing to retain it and be able to repeat the drill, but it's a very different thing to be able to look at that drill and go, how do we approach that drill so it's actually informing our fight? and how do we get a little bit closer to sparring using that drill? And so, if I tried to sum it up, I'd say I keep going out and I keep looking for different people's approach to how to fight. And then I drill it like I'm going to have to do it at Dog Brothers. Like I'm going to have to do it at the throwdown. And I think about all those great fighters that are out there that scare me, because I'm certainly not thinking about the ones that don't worry me. But, I think about the ones that give me a hard. I think about you a lot. I think about you often, actually, man.
I take that as a huge compliment, man.
It is. I don't give out compliments just because they're nice. You picked a couple of moves and decided to completely athleticize them, and it caught me so completely off guard that you could spring across 14 feet and hit me. Like that was like, okay, yeah, no, that's martial arts too, right? So, but there's great fighters out there, and it doesn't matter what it's going to come down to like how they fight. So every single time that you go in there, it's like, well, what really happens in a street fight? What really happens at a Dog Brothers fight? What really happens at a throwdown or any kind of open-ended fight thing, right? It's because it's different than ruled sparring. So,
it is totally different because, like you say, you go to seminars and you learn things and you learn the philosophy, like especially Guru Dan. Guru Dan will not only just show you the technique, but he's going to give you the history behind it. And that context really makes you like understand, why am I doing that? Because I'm the type of guy, I need to know what my why is. If I know what my why is, things will make a little bit more sense, or not even that. I'll just trust the journey more because I have some kind of understanding. But taking the knowledge and then, like you say, applying it, like what you said there with Makoto doing like the scenario training, I think that's one of the best ways to train something. And honestly, like I've been told this many times earlier on in my training, but it never really resonated. And that's all I've been doing lately. And also being exposed, like, through the help of contacts, Paulo helped me, introduce me to somebody that I'm helping, like I'm the bad guy for like use of force training and stuff like that. And arm guard training, right?
Right.
And playing the scenarios is like, it's fun because it's kind of like sparring and acting, but it's really helping me to, like, when I play these guys, like somebody who has mental illness or intoxicated or whatever, like I have experience dealing with these people and I've probably been these people. So, when I tap into that, it's like, oh, it makes sense why I would do this and act like this. And now I understand what their value system is and why they have to do what they do. And it just, things click. But training the scenario, I think, is something that is underutilized nowadays, because you have to be able to know how to do your stuff, not just in a classroom setting, but even outdoor training, or just, okay, stand up against the wall, let somebody, train it from this position, or even like in jiu-jitsu where they do like, they start from a bad position. You're really comfortable with that scenario because that's where you're really going to be able to focus on applying principle theory to the specific context, right?
Well, I mean, there's physical training and then there's the mental training. And arguably the mental training takes more discipline because, it's interesting. When I run self-defense classes, I wrote one a while back based on Makoto's, actually. And then I just kind of tweaked it in ways that I thought would be really helpful. But one of the things that we do is we run the scenarios, but I explain to the people, and they experience this too, you have to get fully in the mindset. You have to feel what it is to be the assailant.
Yeah.
Right? And to have those motivations. And because once you can put yourself into that way of thinking and that way of feeling and that way of behaving, then you could start paying attention to how the other person's response affects you. Because even though it's a role that you're just playing, when a person turns around and gets really aggressive with you, you get aggressive right back, right? If they go into fight mode, you go into fight mode. And if they show you compassion, you get confused. And that's really important, right?
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's higher level training. So I definitely, and I don't do it often enough anymore because I spend so much time like trying to integrate more recently. But certainly there was a long period where, you know, I wasn't looking for external influences and I was just working that stuff. And that was, of course, coincided when I was doing a lot more security work.
I think it's one of those things like, when you're younger, you have a concept or an idea of what you want to be or the type of martial artist you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this for me anyway, but I mean, you have way more experience, but I'm sure you know people who've gone through this, or maybe yourself, but you have this idea of what you want to be and who you want to be and the type of fighter you want to be. And you spend a lot of energy trying to like build these attributes or techniques or whatever. But it's like you already have abilities and instincts as a human being on how to deal with combat. And it's like I find like when I stop trying to be what I thought was good and just saw what I was naturally doing, and then trying to find my way after like coming to terms with what kind of fighter I am or person I am, I found that my education went excelled a lot quicker, I think, than I would have. How important to you, and I think that's why I also was attracted to Jeet Kune Do, because it was about the artist and not the fighter. That was my real because I like to try different things, and I used to like get kicked out of schools because you can only train with one school and this and that. Not like it is now. You can train anywhere you want as long as you pay your fee, right? But how important do you think that is to somebody when if they're starting out martial arts to kind of understand first of all their body mechanic, their framework, what they're naturally good at ability wise? How important is that self-assessment for a martial artist starting out before they decide what kind of education they want to get?
It's funny. It's funny because I'm getting to the point where I think like it's actually completely inconsequential. Like, you know what? It's not martial arts. That's life. We have ideals and we see, who we think we are and who we're going to be, and then we get faced with reality, right? And we adapt. So there's, everyone's going to come in and they're going to have an idea where they're like. I had no idea I was going to get caught up in JKD. In fact, I had no idea I was going to get caught up in martial arts. I was just wanted to feel safer, and but I fell in love with the movement. I fell in love with the way that it made me feel more confident. And anyway, I probably don't have to describe every detail, but eventually over the span of time, like a lot of the things that I thought were key and thought were important weren't. And what was really important was that as I was paying attention to reality and adapting to reality, because all those things that I thought, all those bases I thought I was going to hit along the way, I've hit them. Like those goals that I've had, I've hit them. They look totally different than I thought they would. So
it's hard to recognize when to like accept and move on, or stick it through and achieve, right? Like that's a hard line, you think?
Yeah, it's really hard line. I have on, or at least I feel like I have on many occasions ended up the last person standing waving the banner of some ideal that I thought I was pursuing with a group. And so there comes a point where it's like, okay, am I still waving this banner? Am I still waving it for us? Am I waving it for me? Like,
yeah,
does it need to be waved? Do I need to be the one? And like all the questions of is this relevant anymore? But those things still formed me. They were incredibly valuable. All of those things along the way where I had certain ideals around where it was going to end up and even what it was. But now, like, so much more of it is just, I'm so much more relaxed about it. Now I'm like, hitting the middle. So
when you get to that place where you feel like you're more relaxed and you're able to just like enjoy yourself, what did you find? How did you find that affected your performance as a martial artist, or even your ability to instruct?
I mean, there's been times where I feel like my ability to instruct has varied. So, um, because sometimes I'm focused on fighting, right? And I've been pretty good about splitting my focus. But certainly fighting skews everything that happens at my gym. When I'm like, when I was doing the trifecta of the Dog Brother locations, it was the only thing that was on my mind. And, so every single class was like, and then, at full power, and everything has to be fully energized. And it's like, so at other times, um, and this is another thing that happens is that I'll have a different group of people. And I've had so many different groups, and you kind of fall in love with each one of them, and then they slowly like dissipate and become a new group, and and then they're awesome too. But it's been very different trainings. Like the group of students I had when I discovered KI is a very different group of students that I had when I discovered Dog Brothers. And there's been people that have been with me since before I was doing Dog Brothers, and just doing the throwdowns, that have watched this progression and seen how things have changed and seen how the groups changed. Yeah, I may have lost the thread, but where did we start that one?
It was where, like, when you find yourself in a more relaxed position.
Right?
How did you find that affected your training and your instruction?
I find like just being able to accept the situation more and more means that I'm catering more to the individuals that are there, and it's easier, right? Like the last 3 times that I saw a group change, it was much easier to watch it because I was like, okay, so then there's this lull, and then like there's going to be a new group of people, and then there's going to be like the linchpin group comes in, and then it's going to like redouble, and now there's going to be a new group, and it's going to have a new focus, And so there was like a group that was really heavily into the CLAT, and there was a group that was really heavily into the stick fighting, and then more recently sword. And that's just the last 3 iterations, and so it's a lot easier. And when it comes to lesson planning and organizing the curriculum and so on, it gets simpler again because I mean, I actually have my Padrill system now. I don't even bother teaching like people how to do punching and kicking the way I used to, because I have this system that's like easier. And so I was just like, oh, do this, do this, do this. And then one day I'd be like, and this is the 1-inch punch, right? And this is how to like start focusing the details, right? But there's, as you go on, you can sort of streamline things and make it your own a little bit more. So that helps too.
I really like, I love going to like different schools and learning from different people, because when I was starting to think about maybe wanting to teach, I was like, it was very apparent to me right away that it was an art in itself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a bit rough around the edges. So when I first started teaching people, I was like, just fucking do it like this, just do this, just do that. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know.
But that's how I am, right? But like,
no, I'm not about you. I was the same way.
Yeah, but like, it's amazing because like you really start to, it's like, oh shit, like this is a personality. I'm not used to this type of personality. How do they receive information? How do I communicate this in a way they're going to understand? How do I? So I was like, I would travel to different schools, not just to like absorb, the vibe or the flavor of the training, but also to see how the material was given.
Yeah.
And like a guy like yourself, you stood out to me very, very quickly because you have a different demeanor than what I was used to. You're a very like calm, cool guy, very nice, and usually at other gyms, it's like guys walking around in their tie shorts with their, chest puffed up. It was just a very different vibe than I was used to, and it was cool because at the same time I was getting this like nice, chill vibe. You guys were actually fighting though, and it was just really cool to see that. Like there was that nice contrast, and like, oh, you don't have to be a certain way as a fighter. You know what I mean? And I really like the crowd, like from the throwdowns. Like it was like every type of level, every type of style. And I just thought it was fantastic because it's like, man, this is like, I can test myself against people who don't know me, don't give a shit about me, and who do the most random martial arts that I would ever encounter. And how is my shit gonna hold up?
Yeah.
And it was just very cool, and I like to watch how people teach. And like I say, I try to like, that kind of like JKD mentality with teaching, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add in what is my own. So when you had an influence from like Makoto and other people, who would you say helped really, other than that? Because I know you spent most of the time with him, but I know you have many other instructors. Who would you say are the most like influential people who have contributed to your teaching style, and why? What about them?
Well, I mean, Makoto was huge in this, establishing the whole reason I wanted to teach, right? Because
Oh wow.
everybody called him Buddha, right? Back in the day. And, we're talking about, a guy in a leather coat that like a lot of people would just be like, whoa. but all of his friends called him Buddha because he was like always calm and he was always, a place where people could kind of anchor themselves. Yeah. So at the dojo, just in his circle of friends, I think people felt really, really anchored because there was this general acceptance. And so that was a really important thing to me. And it was a really important thing to carry forward. Along with the great martial arts and the great mentality and scenario and establishing of what the actual context of street fighting is. Because seriously, it saved my life so many times while I was bouncing. But then beyond that, I feel like I want to say all of them, but it would be little trite. The thing is, I've had so many great influences, and I try to emulate them. And if they have something in particular that they deliver really, really well, I'll try to emulate that. And sometimes I'll find like I can't emulate it, and so I'll just keep it in reference. Be like, okay, you need to go to that person for this because that's not my forte. Philip Jelena made a huge difference in me being able to even pursue a career because he's been my mentor as a martial arts instructor and business owner since very early in my JKD training. And
Cool.
So he's been very significant. I don't emulate him because he's very unique and what he gives is really character. Yeah. And I think that's what we all love about him. And of course his skills are tremendous. So no matter what I'm saying, the skills are tremendous or I wouldn't have looked at them in the first place. Guru Dan is incredible. And he's been more role model. I look at him, I look at the way he behaves. I look at the way he stands behind how he behaves and the way that he'll actually stand in front of all of his instructors and say, look, I expect you to be on your best behavior regarding everybody else all the time, period. And it's like, yes, right? Don't talk shit about other martial arts. Yeah. Good call. Maul made significant changes to, like, I watched him very carefully because first of all, I looked at his movement and I was like, yeah, I want that. But then I got there and I saw that there was more depth to the system than just the finishes, which is what I was attracted to at the beginning. And so I've tried to figure out what the core of that system is and how to move that way. And I feel like I'm starting to move that way. So it's, I feel it's like it's integrating well at this point. So, and that came with a little a lot more detail on things that I already knew from JKD, but he comes at them 45 degrees off kilter. You know, like JKD was always working center line, and suddenly here's someone that's working this
angled line,
diagonal, right? So, and his footwork, we're always working the 45. He goes out to 90, right? So it's like, oh, okay, so he's splitting the difference on everything I do. So he's doubling my exposure to what's possible with the same moves, right? And different application of the moves that we've always known, and some that I didn't. So I think that probably one of the like I'm training with Alvin Ganano, and so he's really affected me from a conditioning standpoint. So did Maul, actually, conditioning for both of them, because his CLAT form is just, it very much takes into consideration how to get a Western body type to move like in that crazy dynamic Indonesian form, right? So he's actually broken it down so that you can do it without breaking yourself. And I like that. So and he's a great guy. So then there's GM Makapagal. And I'm sure I've left out a whole bunch of people because I just covered, 35 years with 5 people. So, but GM Makapagal has changed the way I teach. He's changed the way I think in regards to, he's so specific. He's just so specific. I have always been big picture, and then as you need it, we'll refine, right? But you need the big picture so that you can be safer and more aware and blah, 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 and then we'll refine. And this was like, it needs to be perfect. It needs to be refined. We'll spend a year refining the basic single concept. And then in the second year, you can start learning how to apply it. It's like, and not that he said that, it's just how it happened and how he does things. Because when I eventually got invited to come train with him, he delivered the whole system in about 7 or 8 days. And I'd say he delivered it once in the first 3 days, and then he delivered it again in the next 2 days, and then delivered it again in another day, and then like went through it piece by piece to make sure that I knew it to practice. So I go home and I have easily a year's worth of material to like really work on, really chew through. And I get back and I find out that was just set up for the next thing. And and every time I think that he's showing me what he meant to show me, it's just a setup for the next thing that he wants. It's so detailed, so specific. So that, of course, has changed my teaching style, because where I used to come at it from big picture, now I will spend an entire class working on a single thing.
How do you find that? How do you find that works? Do you find that generally works well with anybody, or do you find that you have to reserve that for a specific dedicated group?
It's a funny or maybe sad thing, but every time I discover something that I'm really going to immerse myself in, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. And I actually had, so I have one of my students, Colin Danforth. He turned to me when I came back from my first SSPD seminar. He's like, we're not changing the whole curriculum again, are we? And I was like, maybe.
Yeah.
So, because my JKD students are like, we already know this, and I'm like, no, it's this greatest new thing. It's like, it's different. It's like this, and then a couple years in, I'm like, yeah, okay, we did.
But you know what? It's so amazing to get excited and just be excited about seeing something through a different lens. I mean, I think that's what keeps us, keeps it not boring. It keeps us asking questions, and the more we ask questions, you find the answer, but that answer, brings out another 2-3 questions. And
right.
Just having that attitude, I think, is what makes a good a martial artist, is never thinking that, I know this already. I think that's when you get stale, man.
Yeah. you know, it's been a thing that's caused me a lot of pain. But when I first got into martial arts, I thought all of us were in it to be warriors. And, you know, to like, I was really into, when I was a kid, I was really into like samurai, but I was also really into North American native spirituality. And I just saw those two things as, and you could see like there's a relationship there. And then you know, of course I discovered European martial arts and like the 14th century through 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th century. And I'm like, so the warrior ethos is like this ideal that we can never achieve, but we should always be working on. And I thought all of us were doing that. It's like, and of course I thought I was doing it too, but I always fall short, right? It's an ideal. So it's, I think that you have to have, in my opinion, you have to have a little bit of desire to always be reaching, never quite hit the destination if you're going to be, you know, great, or maybe even just in it for the passion of it.
Yeah,
you know,
I would agree with that. I would think in anyone successful at anything is because of passion. Like nobody's successful of something that they hate. You have to love what you're doing, you know. And if you love what you're doing, you won't even give a shit the accolades that come with it, because you're just doing what you love. So how can you not be good at something that you dedicate your heart and soul to, right?
right.
What I've heard so many different people say, you know, martial arts attracts this blank type of person. You know, and some people I agree, and some people I don't. And I don't think there's one general answer that's correct. But what would you say? What type of person does martial arts attract?
Yeah, I think at this stage of the game, I wouldn't feel like I could accurately define that, because, like I said, when I was young and idealistic, well, when I was young and differently idealistic, I went to this total ideal. But I've been watching that everybody's values are different, and everybody thinks they're right, and maybe they are. But you know, from my point of view, to say like, you know, I remember saying to one of my JKD family brothers when I was trying to figure out how to market us, so that, you know, my teacher could make a little bit more money and have a few more students, and I was like, you know, how would you define people like us? And he got mad at me. And I was like, whoa, you know, and it was just like, what do you mean people like us? And I was like, oh, okay.
All right, buddy.
No, but I mean, at the same time, why was he thinking that way? Like, why was he
Feeling
put off by it?
Yeah.
Like maybe he was offended. Maybe he thought that I was saying something, you know, but I thought like, hey, we're all here doing this thing. We must all have something in common, but we're all different.
I think the one thing that we have in common is like, I think there's a few commonalities. I don't think it's just one, but like most people that I've encountered who train martial arts, they're either in it because, you know, they're either want to be able to defend themselves because of fear of, you know, being less than or a victim. They want to empower themselves, which I have a lot of respect for that, because that takes a lot of balls to walk in the gym already having that subconscious ideal that you're a victim. Like when I first went to an MMA school, I did traditional martial arts, and then I did one throwdown and I got my ass kicked by a Muay Thai guy. And I was just like, what the fuck?
What happened?
Well, you know what it was? You know what it was? So, okay, so my background, like I used to get into a lot of fights. And then like I thought I knew what I was doing. And then I went I got in trouble. I got charged with weapons dangerous charge when I was a young offender, right? Anyway, out of 10 kids, I was the only one my dad had to come pick up from the police station. So I decided like I need to stop doing what I'm doing, and I moved and I went and worked construction with my brother, and I rented out his bachelor pad, right? I had no friends. I had nothing. I didn't know anybody down there. There was a martial arts school down the street. I always wanted to do martial arts. My parents couldn't afford it. I was like, fuck, I got nothing to do now. I'm going to go train. So I walked in there and I hit on the cute little blonde sensei, and she kicked me in my head. We're messing around. I'm like, oh, I get a lot of fights trying to impress her. And she legit kicked me in my head, and I saw stars, and I heard like my ears. And I was like, hey, where do I sign? And then, so like I realized quickly I didn't know anything. But I started there, and it was a Goju Ryu system, right? And it had Gracie Jiu-Jitsu supplementation. So I started there, and then I went to Kung Fu school. But like I said, I went to a throwdown, and just like I was used to like that point sparring.
Yeah.
So that's, I think my entries I attribute to that type of style. But then, man, like pop, and my reflex was to stop.
Good one.
Yeah. So I sparred this Muay Thai guy, and I'm like, pop, and then he just wham, 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 and I had to learn, right? But like I went to after that, I went and sought out like a MMA gym, and I had such a dramatic experience in there, like I thought they were gonna push me down the stairs.
Oh.
It was bad, you know, and then turned me off.
Right.
Turned me off.
So your energy kind of like set them off, and they're
what it was is honestly, I'll tell you a story. I won't say the name of the school. I'll tell you the story. But they were on St. Clair, and they were above the dollar store.
Okay.
I went in there. Some guy was training for a fight. His training partner didn't show up. I was like I'm a new guy. I'm on the bike.
Right.
And they're just like, hey, buddy, you have any training? I'm like, oh, I just started here, but I have what I have at the time, like a brown belt in Mopai Kempo. And as soon as I said that, they looked like, okay, well, we need a partner. Do you want to spar? I'm like, yeah, okay. But, like I said, I'm new at this type of shit. It's like, yeah, don't worry. We just need somebody to move around. So I guess I annoyed the guy. And he smoked me, Shawn. He smoked me in my it was my liver or abdomen. I can't remember. Anyway, I thought he broke my ribs. I couldn't breathe. And when you spar, usually when you hit somebody, you tag them, you give them a second. You good? And then
you check in.
Yeah, this guy did give. He didn't give a shit. So when he smoked me and I like backed off and I was trying to like breathe, this guy was still coming at me, and reflex, I hit him, but I hit his nose. He started bleeding.
Right.
And all of a sudden, they're like, they lost their shit on me.
Yeah. Oh, you're not allowed to hit the champ.
Yeah, you got a fight coming up. You fucking lose. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I had the guy trying to kick my ass, and then the coach yelling in my face, and pretty much told me like I'm an idiot and you're lucky I don't kick my ass and this and that. And they told me to leave, and I grabbed my shit, and then they were chirping me on my way. But it's a long, like I said, it was above a dollar store. It's like third floor. Mm-hmm. So when I'm leaving, I'm death gripping the banister, because in my head, I'm getting this like premonition of they're gonna fucking push me and just say I fell.
Right.
So that horrified me. So my friend Mike Root, she was like, "Hey man, what happened? You stopped training?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm not doing that shit anymore." And I told him what happened. He's like, "Oh, you got to come to combat arts. They're different. They're not like that." And it was really hard for me because of this experience.
Yeah. So
like, I give respect to anybody who does that, because coming in already thinking you're a victim or being traumatized or something like that, I know it took me a long time to even spar, because like I said, it traumatized me, right? Even though I've been in fights, it was a totally different experience.
Yeah.
But I think it's the people that, they don't want to be a victim, and they actually want to empower themselves. And then I think the other kind of person you meet is the kind of person who just needs to work out aggression.
Yeah.
Which I was a bit of that too. And then there's the artist. They just want to feel and live their culture, or their culture, really, with their fathers that did, or their I think that's the three main ones anyway.
I definitely see the people that want to reach back into a culture, possibly their own culture, um, oftentimes other people's cultures, and have an experience of their martial system, of like that whole. Um, Geez, the word has escaped me. Anachronism of martial arts, right? And I think it would be fun to actually get Jonathan Pang on here right now because he has this whole thing about martial arts archetypes, and
He's a great
there's
guy, by the way.
there's a lot of them, right? Because there's definitely. I remember having a conversation with a whole bunch of JKD instructors, and they were asking around the room like, "Why are you here? Like, how did you get here?" And a lot of people said fear, right? And a couple of people was because they met someone and it just clicked. It's like it's like I've been working with them and I've been their training partner, like, and it was that. There was a number of people that said fear. So, but yeah, and again, it depends on the type of school you go to too, right? Like, because some schools are there for different reasons, right? They're social, or they want different reasons than fighting is what I would simplify it as.
Yeah, that's a thing too. So like somebody who wants to be a martial artist and somebody who wants to be a fighter, again, that's a hard split.
Yep.
And I think the most dangerous thing for a practitioner, especially a new person getting involved in martial arts, is wrongfully identifying themselves.
We had this guy come to the gym one time. I'm sorry, just because you said it.
Oh no, go ahead, man.
And if he identifies that I'm talking about him, it's very well intentioned and warm-heartedly remembered. But the guy shows up. And we had just been talking about like people that don't know what they're asking for when they walk into the gym. My partner and I, we were talking about that. And the doorbell rings. We go answer the door uncharacteristically together, open the door, and there's this kid standing there with a shirt that says, "I'm a ninja." And he's like, "I want to become a cage fighter."
It's like a movie.
and then there was like something about like,
that's awesome.
"Oh, you guys have swords here? Do you have a bastard sword?" It's like, and it was just hitting all these like, you actually haven't looked at this yet. It's like you walked in the door having, a couple of words, and it's like, let's go. So it's been interesting to see like that. Some people that just don't, but occasionally those same people end up being fighters. So
yeah, 100%. I think for me it was like I don't know. I had to not trust the information I was being taught. I had to trust that the instructor who was going to get me to that level actually gave a shit about my well-being.
Right.
Like that for me was like I was told, like, "Mark, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this?" For me, it was like my whole goal with martial arts was not really to compete. It was more just I wanted to make sure that if shit went down, Shawn, that I'm either going to make it home alive or make sure this guy never forgets me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that was it. That was what I was worried about. And I really had a problem with like anxiety and shit like that. Like I remember when I used to compete in that type of like continuous sparring and shit like that, I would never tell family. I would never tell. I only tell one friend that I would trust. It was my buddy Mike, because if I got hurt, somebody could bring me to the hospital or something like that. But I never wanted a girlfriend there. I never wanted anything because I just couldn't. That wasn't the reason why I was doing it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I made sure that if I was gonna, I needed to spar, and I made sure I sparred the guys who were competing and who were winning.
Right.
Because in my eyes, I'm like, if I can hang with these guys, and these guys are like doing what they're doing, that's good enough. That's a stamp enough for me.
Right.
Because the rest it's not my goal, right? But yeah, when people think like they're doing good on pads because they know the sequence, and then they they think they're a fighter because their ability to hit pads,
Right.
but they don't have the ability of sparring. It's dangerous.
Agreed.
It's really dangerous. As an instructor, if you see somebody who's kind of like maybe getting a little ahead of themselves, how do you check that in a way where you're not going to dramatize them, but you're really just going to make them realize the work still needed to be what they want?
Um, hmm. So at my gym, we spend a lot of time at the beginning laughing at ourselves. Like it's part of our culture in my school that when you make a mistake over and over again, we find a way to laugh about it because it makes it more streamlined for you to start taking coaching, right, and take changes. Because it's like if you catch yourself making a bad decision, like someone punches at you and you do this, and now you don't know what's happening behind you anymore. It's like, it's a bad decision. And so we try to find ways to laugh at it, because then later on, when you're pushing the envelope and you're scared and, you've had a bad day on the mats, like you're more likely laughing about like, wow, I'm having a really bad day. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, than you are admonishing yourself. And I really try to, that's another one of the things is like when I see one of my students giving themselves a really hard time, I'm like, hey, that's my job. Like, you just try to have a good time, like try to keep smiling. It's like if you're doing something terribly, I will tell you that you're doing something terribly. Go and make some mistakes, right? So that we can fix them. And I think that kind of like overall thing keeps people pretty even toned. That and the fact that the throwdowns, right? Because my school has the unique benefit of having the throwdowns there all the time. And interestingly, most of my students don't come very often. Right? So
to the throwdowns?
Yeah. Right?
Really?
So, yeah, but it's always sitting there waiting for them. Right? It's like you're training here today. You should always be thinking about doing the throwdown. So they're always sitting there going, but those guys are good. Like those guys are scary. It's like every single class. It's like, so what do I need to do to get like closer? And then one day they'll just do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Jump in the pool.
And find out that everyone's really nice. Like that's actually a funny thing. You said at the beginning, it's like, I get to fight people, don't give a shit about me. It's like, actually, that crowd really takes care of each other.
They really do. They really
do. Isn't it neat? Like they
really do.
Once they get on the mats and around there, and I think one of my favorite things about that whole situation, including the way it affects my school, and the way I can always recruit it to keep people kind of level-headed about how we're training, what we're training, like what the actual environment can be like when we step, outside of our own insular circle, is the fact that as soon as the throwdown starts, it's not about Zirger Academy. It's not about me. It's about the event, and it's about that group of people that stood in a circle and made a commitment to each other.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that's what it's about. And so when the vibe turns into what it turns into, and like people talk to each other the way they do and share experience and like meet again at a later date. And it's like, oh, I saw what you did there. Like, I see you've been working on the thing that we talked about last time. It's just like, so suddenly I'm in the position where I get to look at these other coaches and other instructors and other practitioners and identify like, hey, you've got a lot to offer. You've got a lot to offer. And I'm like, I'll spread them around and introduce them to each other when some junior is having, it's like, well, I don't know what to do here. I'm like, well, why don't you fight this guy, he's one of the best boxers we have. Why don't you fight this guy? He's one of the best judokas we have. And it's like, and then, you know, it's no longer about like what we have in our own school. It's like what we have in community.
Yeah. What do we have access to?
Yeah. So
I remember you doing that. I remember you like, hey, you should go wrestle this guy. I remember you doing that stuff. Yeah. No, you know what? I think that's one of the things, honestly, Shawn, that like made me really respect you was what you were doing there. It really is so important to have that. Like, it's not just about my school. It's not just about my name. It's really just about exploration, having a safe place for anybody, any race, any gender to come and just fuck around and move and learn. And it was really, really cool, man. Like, I met great people there. I met you there. I met Reg, Simon, Jonathan. Like, I met some really nice people there. And the thing that makes me laugh, you're talking about not taking things seriously and laughing. That's what makes me laugh is like, I will go to a work Christmas party and have no fucking clue what to say or how to engage in a conversation. But I can go to a random school and have somebody punch me in the face, and I could talk to that guy for fucking half an hour. Like, I know.
Yeah. There's no bonding experience like fighting with someone. I mean, you know them. You can't fight someone and not know them, right? It's part of the Ender game concept there. But the bonds form really quickly. And work parties are scary. I mean, socializing is way more terrifying than fighting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in an environment where everyone's there to you know, have a little fight. So,
I think it takes solace in the fact that whatever's trends, like whatever's happening, is real.
Sure. Oh wow, yeah. Well said.
Because really, that's what it is. It's like, there's no lying. We both know what happened, and you know, win some, lose some. Thank you. You know.
Yeah, I mean, there were a very small number of people that came to the event that didn't get it, and
that's always the case.
But it was a very small number. I was surprised. The majority seem to like really get that they're there to build each other up, you know, by challenging them. And that's really awesome. I love the fact that you almost never hear anyone go like, oh, did you see when I did this to you? Like, they're all like, oh, that was amazing when you punched me in the head and then you cut me with the kick. It was
I mean, I remember like I think the first time I ever had a fight there was against Simon, and it was MMA one. Yeah, it was the MMA one. And I remember you were there, and then right at the end you were like, "Oh, that got me pumped. That was great, guys." Because it was like I didn't know who he was, he didn't know who I was. It started slow and it slowly built up, but it was good because it built up to a point where it was a little bit like not intense, but it came alive a little bit.
Yeah.
But there was still respect, and like we weren't crossing lines. We were having fun that the other guy was able to reciprocate.
Yeah.
And just kind of like we just took it there, and it was really, really fun. And it was like, I think that was for me. That was like because I hadn't done a throwdown in years, a couple of years prior to that, and to have my first one be like that, it was just like, oh fuck it, let's do it. Let's just have fun. It was great. It was a great experience.
Simon's a really great guy. He's so even keeled.
Yeah.
And he kept progressing in BJJ, but now he's a master brewer. So
yeah, I remember him talking about that because another time I went there, that's the first person I looked for. I'm like, where's Simon? We got to just do a grappling. Right. And we had a good nogi one as well. It was fun. But yeah, I remember him talking about that, man. And see, like, it's funny, like this shit with this pandemic, man. Like, I don't know about you, but when I'm stuck at home, I have all these pictures on my wall of all these different people I've trained with and places I've gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to just put them up because it's like kind of like a thing you did. Like I always see gyms do it. It's like, yeah, I'll do it too, right? Now I appreciate why I do it. because when I sit here, and I can't go anywhere, I can't go train, I just look around. I'm like, fuck it, I owe it to all these people to keep training, and
Right.
and you just have like all these memories just come back and bring a smile to your face, and you can kind of like now you have a timeline, you can see what your real growth was, not what you think your growth is at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
For that span of time, and it's amazing how many people you are throughout your journey.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It keeps changing. Keeps changing. It's changing now. It's so strange having closed down the school.
By the
You
way,
know, like,
I didn't know if you want to talk about that, but if you're cool with it, I would like to, because I know there's other people who have gone through that too, and I just want to say, like, I'm sure there'll be better things coming for you.
no doubt.
I was sad to hear that.
Yeah, it's I mean, my school didn't shut down. It's in my backyard now. But the fighting arts did, and it was the right decision at the time, for sure. Because I looked at the situation and I was like, okay, just a minute. What kind of help are we being offered?
Yeah.
Debt. But the thing was, all we were really being offered at the time was debt. And it was like, I was sitting there looking at it and I was going, so if I continue, what I'll really be doing is taking every last scrap of everything that we succeeded on, and we'll be giving it to our landlord who doesn't want to get on this ride with us. And so I can take debt from the government and give money to, and it was like, no, there's no way we can do that. And so wrapped it up, shut it down, put everything in storage, and we'll see. But it forced me to kind of look at like how long I've been struggling to keep it open in a city where gentrification was going to literally, unless we significantly raised our rates, we weren't going to hold that location. And it was interesting because I'd actually been yearning for a couple of years to either A, figure out how to make it permanent, or B, reduce the overhead and get it to something simple.
Sure.
That we could focus on just the quality and not worrying about like, well, how are we gonna keep up with the growth of the city? And but it's weird having it closed because I can feel that it's in hibernation, and I can feel that it's like at this point I can see things are looking like we're almost opening up. Like, is it time yet? It's like, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. It's like, do I go again right now?
Yeah, it's like it's that uncertainty that makes it so difficult, because it's like I look at the restaurant business, right? And it's just this like fucking puppet string game that they're playing. It's like, okay guys, we're gonna open up. And so these guys, what's the first thing you gotta do if you own a restaurant? You gotta go buy food. So these people fork out their money to go buy all this food, and then we lock it down.
Mm-hmm.
Now what happens to that food? Okay, sure. Maybe you eat some of it. Maybe you sell some of it. Maybe you have freezers, you can hold some of it. But it's going to go bad. And that money, there's no recoup on that, really. And then it opens up again. How long are you going to do this same cycle? Until it bleeds you dry, right?
Well, hopefully not more than once, right?
Well, that's the thing. We're on our third lockdown, and this is a reality that certain people have had to go through. And it's sad because, like I said this before, I'm like, there's nothing worse than serving a sentence and you don't know what your time.
For sure. Yeah, that's
plan.
The hardest part about these days is that almost everything that you give momentum to will get bogged down, and so the emotional, spiritual, mental cost of that is very high. And I have had so many conversations with so many people who, like me, are not in a dire situation and are depressed. Like, just openly, we'll open the conversation with, "Yep, I'm struggling." And it's like, wow. And these are the people that got to work all the way through it, and people that, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with their position.
I'm
It's
one of
just that even the people that had a really stable time of it are suffering. So the people who just got completely sidelined, because I've been offline since March of 2020. Like I haven't had anything really take momentum except for my Zoom classes, right? So, and so I can relate to, or maybe not relate to, but I can feel for people out there that have it worse than me. People that have to like get out there and diversify. But you know, I'm a little bit proud of recognizing that this wasn't actually the time to fight the tide. You know, the tide was going out. No idea when it's coming back in. It sort of played a couple of times like it was gonna, but it's still out, right? So that's really hard. So if it's something like the restaurant industry, or mostly restaurant industry, because I'm not worried about the really big guys; they'll figure it out. But the smaller businesses, they've had a really rough time of it, right? And I think part of that's like there's this belief that if something's really big and financially stable, that they're going to do a better job. I really think all the mom and pop shops could have figured out universal hygiene code.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different conversation. We can, you know what I mean? Because I don't think that this is happening by chance. I think this is I personally think it's a strategy. Some people call me a conspiracy theorist. I come in with whatever the fuck you want. I don't give a shit.
It's really easy to imagine there's some sort of a handoff happening.
Of course. Like,
yeah.
Anyway, but what bothers me is like, okay, so I moved from where I was living because I trained at my home gym was Combat, and I trained there since 2007. And like I trained there, I was there a lot. I trained, and I moved to Oshawa for whatever reason, and it was hard because I didn't want to leave that gym.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to leave my friends and my family and everything there. And so I would drive back every weekend for my training.
Right.
And when I come, it was like 9 a.m. private lesson with Joey, 10 o'clock boxing, 11 o'clock Muay Thai, and then I would teach JKD, or sometimes I wouldn't do Muay Thai, it'd be FMA, and then I would train for like 4 or 5 hours, then go home because I was there. I wasn't going to see it every day. You know what I mean? And I really looked forward to that. Like that, I didn't realize at the time how therapeutic that was for me. Just to look forward to going there 1 day a week because I live far away, and then whenever I trained there, I would practice all week until Saturday again, and then that's when I would spar.
Yeah.
Try out. When this shit happened, it was the effect it had on me. I just thought like, holy shit, like Combat's a big school. FAC is a big school. There's so many big schools that have so many students and so many, like little cultures and sub communities within. And these people needed each other. These people relied on each other. These people saw each other every day. And now it's like, just like that.
Yeah.
And it's more than just the money and the businesses. Obviously, that fucking sucks. Like for anybody who's lost their business, of course that sucks. But it's bigger than that. It's like the deterioration of a community and of something that we love.
It's absolutely true. And I don't really think anyone did it to us exactly, because I mean, I have students that aren't coming to my Zoom classes. Like we pivoted instantly onto Zoom, and I think everybody tried to do it, and I think it actually made it worse for some people that we tried to do our community in a not physically present manner. And
shock.
It was a huge culture shock, and it's like, hey, this isn't what I was doing before. This isn't how I was connecting with you before. And it makes me miss how we were connecting so much.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we have our bubbles, which is like a concept that keeps us a little bit safer, but it's also a concept that, and I don't know, maybe I'm just the asshole doing it terribly, but I find that I haven't talked to a lot of people outside of my bubble nearly enough, because I'm like, you know, so focused in on like
Hyper focused.
the couple of houses that my life revolves around now. And it's like, so when people reach out to me, or I remember to reach out to others and we connect, and it's like, oh, we're still here. It's you know, this is great. And I realized like I've tuned them, like not intentionally or anything. It's just I got so insular that I didn't reach out to that friend or this friend or that associate. And you know, fortunately, there's Facebook that keeps me reminded that those people are out there. And then there's my tendency to scroll through my contact list when I feel like I need to, you know, remind myself who's out there. And there's my international friends, right? Because this last 7 or so years of touring around the world and training with so many people it's created an online group that is used to talking through Messenger, right?
Yeah, good point.
And it's like, so that group is actually super active and keeping me laughing a lot of the time. So it's like, you know, every once in a while, like someone will post something and everybody will pile on, and it's makes you feel connected. But I think that the light at the end of the tunnel is starting to show, right?
I hope so.
And I don't know if we'll ever get back to what normal was before, but I think we'll start being able to like reconnect with our people. Can you imagine like actually being able to stand in a crowd, like, and not be worried that maybe it would contribute to someone you care about getting sick? Like, that'd be awesome.
I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, I have my opinion on everything, and you know, I have close friends who are like, "Oh, what the fuck are you thinking?" But at the end of the day, it's like, listen, I'm gonna be respect. Like, I have a sister who's fighting cancer right now.
Yep.
I can't go see her.
Right.
I have a father who's slowly deteriorating. Can't go see him. I have a friend who, was in his 30s, just went jogging, had a heart attack, and died.
Fuck, man, sorry.
I had another friend. He's a brother of one of my childhood buddies who died of an overdose in BC, and his was because of the depression that this shit caused.
Right.
And it's just like, fuck. You know what? What am I gonna live in fear? I'm just gonna live in fear. Like, honestly, I at this point, I know this might sound stupid, but I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm gonna be honest to myself. I'd rather take the risk and get sick than just fucking live existing in a fucking shelter. You know?
I agree. You know, I have to be a little bit careful because I have some people that would be in trouble if they got exposed, and so I've had to be careful and live in fear a little bit. But on the other hand, I ride a motorcycle, so it's
right.
Yeah, so it's like I totally see your point. You know, there's the degree to which. So look, I don't know that I would have made it through the pandemic if one of my training partners and I didn't roll each other's houses into our circle. Right? So I have every week been able to train when there wasn't a close contact or something like that, where it was like, you know, I'd isolate, but we've trained. And my teacher, Jim Makapakal, he actually got himself online so he could train with us and coach during this thing. So it's like I've actually been able to continue one thread of my training.
Better than nothing.
So, oh my God, I just don't know what I would have done, man. I don't know if I would have, I don't know how I would have gotten through it. And, you know, maybe it would have been bad decisions. Who knows? But, you know, I have had this thing and it's been a boon for my mental health. And because there's this one area in which I have been progressing, right? And I needed at least one, you know. I've opened up so many attempts at creating momentum during this thing that failed. That even with this one thing, it's still a struggle some days to like figure out why I'm doing it. You know?
Yeah.
So why am I going to do today? It's like,
you know, like there was like, it's like, it's amazing because I think people just haven't had a chance to really process properly because the shifts have been so quick and so many that we don't get a chance to settle.
right.
You know, it's like walking. It's like playing musical chairs. You walk in a room, you sit in that chair. You're about to take your jacket off. Oh, that's my seat. Oh, you move to the next chair. Oh no, that nobody got a chance to just sit down and see what's in the room. You know, and at first we did the pivot. You know, and like, oh fuck, you know, I'm gonna be in the best shape of my life. I got all kinds of Zumbax that. You know, Sean,
I remember.
I was doing, I can't remember how many fucking classes I was doing a day, you know, and it just all of a sudden is like you say, it actually made me more sad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I got to a point where I was like, fuck, man, is this really what it's going to be?
Yeah.
And then I remember going and teaching when they can only have, these bullshit fucking pieces of tape that's going to save my life because it emits this energy field that protects any fucking disease, you know, like Jesus Christ. And then you're watching it and then like, you know what it's like when you're in a gym and you can hear the chains punch and like getting hit and the chatter and I'm standing in a room teaching a class and people are 6 feet apart and it's like fucking silence.
Right.
All you hear is like that's all you hear now. It's just like what a fucking shame.
Right.
You know? And then back to the lockdown. Can't even be in there anymore. Then you feel bad for feeling bad of what it was like because at least you were there.
Yeah, that's kind of the worst. It's like you can't in a lot of situations it feels selfish.
Yeah.
Talk about how you're struggling because everyone's struggling. So it's like you're almost like as you tell someone like where you're at, you're almost saying like, but so are they.
It is true, and it does come off like that. But if we look at it bigger than that, should be something that we are paying attention to, right? When your body hurts, it's going to start with your back saying, "Hey, I'm hurting."
Yeah.
And if you ignore that, it's going to move up your shoulders.
Yeah.
And then your neck. And so everybody's saying, "Hey, I'm hurting. I'm hurt." We need to recognize that. We need to be there for each other and console each other, and we need to look for solutions because this is who we are. And that's never going to change. People need to be with people. People need outlets. People need communication. They need, that's what we are,
Yeah.
And to say you can't do it because you could get sick. Fuck, man. A lot of things could kill you. I got a guy look at me and put your mask on.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. Right. Like, shut up, man. Shut up. Mind your business. Because my whole problem with this whole thing is not that, it's the virtual signaling and it's the you have to do what we tell you. Like, no. This is my body. I understand there's rules and there's society and this and that. We have to, but let me tell you something. It's about choice. When people infringe on choice, that's when I have a problem. That's when I have a problem. Because like what's next? They're going to tell you have to vaccinate. Says who? This is my body. You know what I mean? I have my own opinions on it, and I don't, and you could disagree with it, but that's okay because that's the point. You have a choice to.
Yeah, but I respect that you think that everybody should have choice, and if that goes both ways, then it's who am I to say something against it, right? because choice does go both ways, right? Uh, so for me, I have a lot of friends in the medical profession, and I have some medical training, so I have some specific ideas. And even though I firmly trust that it would not be possible to get the entire medical population of the planet to like go along with some, conspiracy, um, it sure looks bad. Like, and I think one of the things is like we have all this technology to talk to each other now, and but what we don't, I always thought the internet was going to give us access to information, right? And then we get the internet, and it actually doesn't give you access to information. What it does, especially what it does now with all the social media, is that it makes you product, and it tracks you as, you know someone that's going to help move the algorithm forward. So
Yes.
it, and what's really interesting is that we have been here before. We've gone through pandemics before, and people have worn their masks knowing less than we know now. Right? And like, people have gotten in line. But I think one of the things that was really different about that time is it was people talking to people.
Yes.
People were leading people, and they would talk to each other, and they would like come to a consensus about what they believed in. And if there was a dispute, it would be between people that were willing to stand up in a crowd and have discourse and really lead the conversation to a conclusion. And nowadays, we have people shouting into the abyss, and an algorithm showing us what we already think and reinforcing it. So it's like the whole human
Experience.
occasion, the experience of watching informed people discourse about the thing, or having the filter down of that discourse through personal means, is like, man, can you remember having arguments about things and going, you know what, I'm gonna have to go look that up.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, and now people are like, no, see, it's like, well, yeah, but is that real? Is it true? Is it?
But even still, like, okay, and here's the thing, this fact check bullshit, I hate that. I hate it. Listen.
Well, is the fact check? Well, yeah. Oh, go on.
You know what I mean? Oh, it's fact check. Well, how do you know that fucking, the thing is this, there is so much misinformation, like you were saying. And, some people will say, if it comes from this source, it's fucking real. But, like, even the real sources are manipulated by agendas, are manipulated by economics, are manipulated by many things that we don't see. So it's when these people say, well, I know because I read it off this side, and it's like shut up, man. Like,
and for sure there was always shit going down, but like, I think that it's going to happen, that the technology, it's either going to happen one way or the other. We're either going to like really screw it up badly and leave things the way they are, or we're going to realize that we short-circuited our system, right? And we're going to adapt. And because think about it, if there had been consistency in this pandemic response,
exactly,
we would all feel much better about it.
Yeah.
But we're living in a time where it seems like leadership went, okay, everybody, come up with a plan. And everybody did. And the leader said, enact your plan to everybody. And then they all did. And every day we're going in different directions. So if leadership didn't bother to make it consistent, and deliver it in a way where we can digest it, I feel like that's where we were really let down. It's funny because I see a lot of people are like, oh, well, if people are in power, then they must be manipulating us. And it's like, well, I mean,
I think it comes with the territory, honestly.
I I think I think when people produce something epic, that they have a lot of influence, right? You know, like I'm seeing people starting to like mark Elon Musk the same way that they, are worried about um, Bill Gates, right? And it's like, oh, he's successful now. He must be controlling us. It's like, well, he's got a mission. He definitely has a mission. Not everyone's going to agree with him, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean he's out to get you, right? It's like maybe wanting us to have the chance to leave the planet before, the fruit flies are too many for the jar is a good idea, right? I would sure love to see. I've heard people going, "Oh, well, it's crazy to spend money on sending people to the moon, or sorry, to Mars. When we can't feed children in Africa." And it's like, yeah, but I mean, isn't it crazy to like kill the ocean when we have people starving in the world? Like, like, and like, couldn't like 1% of the defense budget fix it? Right? So
I just think everything is like the idea of nationalism.
uh-huh.
Um, like it's really lost. Like everything is up for sale.
It feels like
Everything
definitely
is
feels
up.
like
Everything is up for sale. Everything has a price, and it's okay as long as there's a profit to be made. We can justify it,
yeah.
and it's just all this has done has really just shown how corrupt government is, and I think that's the problem. I think I don't think people are meant to live like that. I really
No.
I think people are better sustained in like tribes or smaller scale communities, and I think it's happened in history before that the population or the community gets so big that the bigger it is, the more conflict arises, and it just collapses, and then it reborns, and it tribes break out, and then it's that cycle that just happens over and over again, and that we only get to this certain peak because we don't know how to sustain it, because it doesn't become about the community anymore. It becomes about wealth, power, get mine, this and that, and it's just like I think this is I feel like that's how it is nowadays anyway. Like I don't feel like the generation I grew up, the morals that I was taught, they no longer exist, or they're outdated, or they're this or that and the other. But I can tell you something. That might be true, but the way that people are operating now, it's wrong. It's not, because it's not bringing us anywhere good.
The values aren't outdated or anything. They're just wildly inconvenient in a world where the people who don't exercise them are just fine, thank you very much, right? And it's a tough world. It's funny because we spent our lives like learning martial art because it gave us this modicum of control and self-defense. And then, we open our eyes to the present world and you realize that we're actually subsidizing our destruction with our tax dollars. and people are able to show us this, like just straight up show it to us and go, oh yeah, that's what we're spending our money on these days. And we know it's doing the damage. And it's just like, yeah, but let's do it anyway, because money today. And, I've come to this conclusion. So I on a total side note, I write, and I like to write fiction. And I've never published, and I don't know if I ever will get around to publishing. But lately, I've been looking at the cyberpunk genre, and I've been writing in that genre, and doing research in that genre. And I've been looking into things like food and technology, and what are the limits around what we can do with things like GMOs and things like autonomous weapon platforms. And the answer is there are no limits. and and we're paying for that, right?
Yeah.
As a whole, we're paying for it. And the corporations, what they're feeding us, and this is bottom line driven, right? I'm not saying that there's like these evil people out there doing this thing. What happened is we created something that made a lot of sense in the 1500s, when, or maybe, sorry, 1700s, when we created incorporation, right? Because that was entirely created in order to keep the owner of the ship free from responsibility should the ship sink with someone else's cargo on board, right? And so it's like, okay, if there's pirates, so of course you can game that because you can pay some pirates to steal your cargo and like split the, but I mean, the thing is, we've always been raiders. If it gets hard, go and kill them and steal it from them and, take what we need from them, right? And it's something that we've always done. And then we create incorporation, and suddenly it's not even about us anymore. It's about shareholders. It's about a non-human entity that has rights, setting the terms for what the needs of the bottom line are. So the bottom line is make money. It has nothing to do with people. It has nothing to do with life being better for people or it being sustainable. Like, that's not in the code.
And that's, yeah, man. I think that this is not the way.
And it's not the way. This is the way to the end.
Yeah, and it's like,
because if you win this game, there's nothing left.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Right?
What's what is it worth it? So
no.
So now you have everything. Like, one thing I will say, it's good that's coming out of this that I've seen, but it's sad that it has to happen this way. Is you are seeing now appreciation for things
like life,
like the people who were in your life,
like
the people who have influenced your life,
real things,
what it's like to shake someone's hand.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Or like stand near someone and talk to them.
Right. And like these things, unfortunately, now with martial arts, like I don't plan on ever grading. Like, it's not something I care about. I strictly do it. It's the martial art I do as a treat. It's like my cookie after dinner. And so I love capoeira. I don't plan on ever being a real capoeirista, but I love playing with it. Just for the simple fact of the athleticism, the workout. I feel the music, and I pull it off sometimes. I pull off some shit here and there, which is fun.
No way, awesome.
But the culture of it, since I've been in this lockdown, like, I'm more attracted to it because I'm like, fuck, this ain't the first time martial arts gone underground.
Yeah.
And like, what do these people do? How do these people survive? How they hit it. The songs would mean certain things. The reason why they stand in the holda is so that everybody can watch each other's back in case police came.
Right.
Like, all these things, I'm like, okay, this is where we're at. We're in a point in history now where this is now where we're at. How do we keep involved? How do we keep making this still exist and overcome and adapt, right? And so martial arts wise, that's my mentality now. I'm looking to history and I'm trying to extract what was successful in history in order to sustain what we've all been working for, right? Because in a grand scheme of things, how is this impacting martial arts or the growth of martial arts? Because it's come so far. Like, you look how martial arts used to be, right? And then you had like something like the UFC make this huge ripple. And now all of a sudden now if you look at it, everybody's cross training and every gym is multi-dimensional. And that just made a whole crop and few generations of young athletes that just fucking skyrocketed because there was no limitations on where they could train. And so we get to this peak of athletes and athleticism and instructors and techniques. And now it's like, pinch the hose. What's the effect that this is going to have on us?
Wow, that's so loaded. But you know what's interesting? Positive effects. Probably haven't seen any of us archive our material so much as we have in the last year.
Yeah.
Right? Think of how many terabytes of content people have pumped through their Zoom classes, and how many have kept it, recorded it, even made it accessible. And it's so in some regards, maybe it's saving it, because I'll tell you one of the things that I learned recently that I never ever considered, because let me tell you something on your channel. This will be fun. I love Paulo Rubio's Aperture. I don't love Aperture. I like Paulo's purpose.
Yes, so do I.
And the only reason I don't say Aperture is because there's a lot of there's so much chatter, I have to turn it off frequently, right? So
I stopped talking on platforms a long time ago.
Yeah. I can't have small talk too much, and especially about the same topic. I can't talk about the same topic in minutia on a daily basis. So, but I never really thought about that. This whole idea. So I'm sorry, I got a little scrambled there. But the whole idea that no one can tell me what my process is. No one can tell me my journey, right? I should be able to access everything. And, I'm not going to let someone tell me who I could be friends with or whatnot, blah, blah, blah. And I love it. I love it. And then I meet some of the old men in the Philippines, and I'm seeing that philosophy is destroying our connection to our heritage. And it's like, not because of it, what it is itself, because I understand where it came from in our context here in North America. That makes perfect sense, because I've seen so many cases where there's been a manipulation, where there's been unreasonable control of a student, around. And it's bullshit anyway, right? Because it's like, as you said, if everybody has access and everybody can cross-pollinate, you're going to create a whole new generation that's really, really awesome. But at the same time, you'll have kids walk up to you and goes how come MMA is the best martial art? And you're like, what? How come all the best fighters are from America and Brazil? What? Right? It's like, did you only watch MMA? Are you coming at me the pinnacle is the only thing?
No,
and it's
great point.
The lack of awareness of where we came from, of what the lineages were, why the lineages were, right? All that old stuff is actually getting compromised, in a huge way through monetization, right? Because, why would you want to commit yourself to learning a complete system the old way from one of the bearers of the source material, when you could just cross-pollinate, not have any commitments?
Well, I mean, why not? Why can't we have, that cross-pollination, and why can't we still have these purists?
Well, and that's the thing. We can, right? But it's interesting to be straddling two worlds.
It's not that. How do I word it? It's okay. It's you have tons of family doctors, right? And they have education in this and that and this and that, and we'll call those your MMA thing, right? Where they have some knowledge from all these different things, and they have a very good, well-rounded understanding of your health. But you still need a specialist.
Sure.
Right? And so I always,
And honestly, would you want like the 90-year-old specialist that learned in the 70s?
you know what, you know what, that all depends on how I feel about them, and or what has been said about them, or I don't judge shit like that. Like I don't know, maybe it's just me. I know there's others like that, but I don't really give a shit where you learned or what you're able to. I learned a very I learned a lesson when when I worked construction. My brother had a company, and I worked with him for a few years, and I knew nothing about it. And in the short few years that I worked with him, I was able to do flagstone. I could drive a bobcat like no problem. Like I could look at a grade and fucking see, and then you get these guys who are going to school and were doing the theory, and they were very educated, way more educated than I was. I felt stupid around them. The only thing that made me feel good about myself is if they pissed me off, I could smash them.
Isn't it the most frustrating feeling?
I took solace in that. I'm like, fuck, man, if this was a different time, you'd be fucking washing my shield. You know what I mean?
Did you never feel the irony of it?
Yeah, but it's good. It's good to feel that, because all it made me do is like, but to get to the point is,
sorry,
when these guys were coming to work physically,
mm-hmm.
to watch them fumble around to hold a fucking rake, or the coordination and balance to fucking wheelbarrow something up a plank and dump it, it made me say, like, it doesn't matter what your title is on a paper or where you went to school. It's not your intent, it's your action.
Right.
And so, yeah, it made me feel like, you know what? I don't care where somebody says they got their education. I care about what they can do with their knowledge.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, that was a big, like, eye-opening lesson for me. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that people that go on and study it can't do it as well. But it's like there was a lesson in that I took. You know what I mean?
Well, yes, I do. My dad, my dad had me on the work site, restoring, refurbishing, renovating houses, like, since I can remember. So I've been bawled out by the best about which screwdriver I should have brought, and like that's not how you hold a ring. And the funny thing is I'm actually installing pavers in the backyard right now. But I'm going to improve the school. But if you don't actually have applied experience, then it's very, very difficult. And this is an interesting thing. And this is what I see the old men talking about. And I understand, like, the times change, but I see a lot of people worried about preserving the heritage, the history, and what the art actually was. And in this day and age where everybody can cross-pollinate and blur the lines of what came from where, and it's unnerving to the group that wants to see it crystallized, for future generations to look at. But I've been a JKD guy since I moved to Toronto in the late 80s, and I guess I started in 1990 with Makoto, and like, we've been all about progressing it. One of the things, though, I always wanted to do was make sure I knew where it came from, who it came from, who taught me what, right? And so that's been really important. So it's just interesting to see, like, both sides of that. But definitely blending things is helping. I think where it doesn't really work out is when, it's things that are not actually evolving, like sword play. Because we're not carrying swords, so it's not going to evolve. So,
yeah,
maybe later.
You have to have I don't know if this is going to make sense. It does in my brain.
Probably.
But it's like this. It's like, look at technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have this. I'm going to add a little component of religion real quick.
As you wish.
Okay. This is how I look at things. Whether you're religious or not, whether you look at the religion as like literal sense or symbolism,
Mm-hmm.
there's like different ways to look at it. It's like, okay, Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden, right? And she's tempted by the serpent to eat from the knowledge tree.
Right.
So she is tempted. She takes it. She's aware she's naked. Adam comes along. She tempts Adam because men just follow women. You know, that's our measure, right?
Oh, you picked it for me? Great.
Yeah. So now you got them both. I'm naked, and this and that and the other, right? God comes. Why? Who told you you're naked? So the knowledge tree, right? So the internet to me is the knowledge tree, and that's why the symbol for Apple has the bite mark in it.
Right.
So like this is like the knowledge tree, but it's not. It's like a double-edged sword. Like this is both good and bad. We're not meant to know everything. I don't think we're not meant to have everything at our fingertips. I don't think, and it's like it's a very dangerous thing, and we're very naive to think we can control this. And this fucking thing has changed society faster in a short amount of time that we are unable to deal with it. It's like that's why you tell your kids not to drink or have sex, because mentally not prepared for the repercussions.
Yeah, and we knew.
You know?
We knew going in, because all the cyberpunk writers, all the sci-fi writers really were really, really clear that VR would be, they all thought it was going to be VR, right? They didn't realize it was going to be social media, but they all thought it was going to be VR was going to be so addictive that like no one would be able to turn away from it. And it's like, well, you know, video games are pretty good, but man, those like buttons.
But VR is coming. Right? And so where I'm getting with this is you have all this technology, right? And like things like cursive writing are being lost.
Sure.
You know, there's so many things like long division, like all kinds of shit. People don't know how to do that anymore because they rely on this. But if this goes, a lot of people are gonna not have the skills.
Oh, we're done. We're done.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. That with the cross-pollination of martial arts, I look at the cross-pollination like the internet. We have all this shit here, but if we don't remember the fundamental how to like do long division, how to write cursive, how to change a tire, how to fucking read a compass, how to fucking read the sun, like what time it, like these
how to make a compass,
how to make a fire,
all
these things that pushed us forward to be able to create this. We can't throw that out with the babe. What's the phrase, Sean? Save me.
Baby with bathwater?
Yeah, whatever.
Bathwater? Yeah, baby with bathwater.
Yeah, you can't throw out those things because you have this now, because when this breaks down, you have no fucking backup.
But we have. And it was predicted also, right? So
I'm intrigued now. How do we have it?
Well, we've already made that mistake. We're dependent on it. We look at it all the time. We actually look at our phones all the time just to get endorphins, which we really ought to be getting from, you know, getting tasks behind us, interacting with humans, like having relationships, like, you know, these kinds of things are central to our daily lives. And now we get those endorphins from likes and thumbs ups and happy faces and, you know, like, and crazier even to see it on the scale of like having been in lockdown for a year, because I saw people in conversation struggle. They're like just struggle like to be present around a group of people. Yeah. I know I do. Yeah, like, you know, it doesn't matter if we're distancing or what. It's like I'm just nervous to be in front of them. I'm excited too. Like, don't get me wrong. I could really go for a dance party right about now, but the and I think I outgrew that about 20 years ago. But I could go for it now. Um, and but it's yeah, it's crazy the way it's affected us. You know, like 10 years ago or more, I stopped watching television. And I stopped watching anything that had commercials in it.
Yeah.
And now they've shoved them into my social media.
Yeah.
Like in spades. And I specifically got off of commercials. It sounds like cocaine, right? I got off of commercials. And it was like the best move of my life. But it's when I pulled away from commercials, it was because I noticed that they were telling me what to think, what to feel, what to want, what my values were, right? And this is the corporate state mentality. It's like marketing is this is one of the things I think that corporations should be very responsible for correcting some of the problems that we have. Is marketing is a very powerful tool, and one of the things that's been happening to us ever since the Industrial Revolution is that they've been grooming us to be better consumers.
Yeah, 100%.
Because communities are not strong consumers; they share.
100%.
And that's not going to make maximum amount of money. So it's like,
wow, yeah.
We really need businesses to start getting in line with, and I don't want to like do that on too grand a scale because then there's like more control, but I think that the people with the power have to take responsibility. It's like, I've looked at the number of times that the general public is held responsible for things like plastics in the ocean, right?
Yeah. Who's fucking making and selling them?
So, well, exactly. We're not producing them, we're buying them. Who told us to buy them? Well, you know, did the market change because we decided that we needed to eat in our cars all the time? Or did we need to eat in our cars all the time because we were in our cars all the time? Like, it's just, and I think that the governments and the businesses that set the values such that everything became disposable and proprietary, so that you could only use one device with one cable. It's like, come on, right? Why do we have to waste everything that came before just so we can do it again? And this is where I go back. It's like, we are raiders, right? We're just raiders. So we need to make an adjustment, because we made an adjustment into agriculture. But we're still being raiders, because what's the first thing we do when we're going to like plant something? We kill everything else, right? It's like, so if you're trying to develop life and you start with mass
genocide
of everything that could possibly compete a little bit with you, right? It's like, well, you go back to all of the ancient lore, all the old tribal lore, we're stewards. We're supposed to take care of it, and then it'll take care of us. And then it's like, nope, let's stop being communities. Let's start like working all the time and wanting like these things that don't actually change our lives. But now we think that that's what's going to get us our partner. Like, they've gone straight into our basic drive to procreate and went, let's just change your values so that you think that you need, you know, all of these things to attract a partner. And it's
I think that's the one thing about martial arts that has stayed alive from the like traditionalism or the root of what it was made for. You know, like you were saying earlier, there's no different bond than with somebody who's, you know, you sweat with, you push you, this and that. And I've said this many times before, but really it's self-evident. Like that actions or those people involved in that, the level and depth of their friendship is totally different than, you know, fucking Megan, who fucking is on Instagram and she talks to her fucking Cynthia, and they compare makeup tips. Like it's shallow. It's a shallow pool, you know, and it's I think it comes from that interaction that the mentality is like, yeah, we're doing this, but we're doing this so we both get better. It's that
Yeah.
investment, like you said. It's about you putting it in so that it can take care of you after.
Yeah. I mean, I think it could be like akin to a dance class or a yoga
Yeah,
class, something like that, where people get together and they're looking at personal development, like hard skills. Like, I want to go out west and work with Darcy LOS,
yeah, man.
last
He's a
one
cool guy.
standing,
He's a cool guy.
because it's like, yeah, I want to go into the woods and figure out what I can eat on the West Coast. Like,
Yeah.
I did that out here one time up north, and that was really cool for a while. And I forgot. I don't think I could go and just. I think I'd get really sick if I tried to live off of the woods
Oh yeah.
these days. I could probably still do a fish trap, but like,
I actually had him on. I had him on the parlay.
yep,
He's a really interesting cat, man. And like yeah, like and that's what I'm saying. Going back to those fundamental skills, we rely on our food being ready for us on a shelf. Like, dude, your medicine cabinet is should be in your kitchen. Like these simple things on how to like forage and recognize plants and shit like that. How many people know how to do that? Hardly anybody. Like there's a very select few, but people could recognize a brand name for clothing mile a fucking way.
I grew up on a farm in the summer times, and we raised cattle. And on the other farm, my other grandparents had a fruit farm. So in the fall, we would have to go and harvest. And I can't tell you the number of times in my life where I felt the advantage of knowing where food comes from. Right? Like it was an advantage because you would see people like react to food like, well, if it's not in the plastic tray with the nice cellophane on it, it's
Oh,
not really
yeah,
food, is it?
yeah,
It's like, no, if it's packaged, it's not really food.
yeah.
And so yeah, it's wild to see the way that things are being lost. And I agree with you entirely. Like martial arts and really all things where people are together sharing skills, that that is what commerce used to be. Like it used to be that if you were wandering around and you met somebody, you would teach them something. Like if you could teach them a skill, share with them a skill, like show them like how this root can be used for this, like that was a huge gift, right? And there might be a heart token to go with it, like maybe you gave them a rock or a shell, but like that used to be really significant, and it's a lost part of our culture.
And I think people retain information more that way because it was given to you on a personal level.
Hmm.
Like there wasn't just the lesson learned; there was the memory of that person who gave it to you.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
can you imagine if we were all suddenly interested in this stuff, how much more relevant our elders would feel?
Oh fuck! And that's another problem with where we're going is we don't hold that value to them.
Well, they don't have any value in the future, right? In the future, it's all stuff that has been invented in the last 20 years,
Yeah,
right? They don't, like
but
my parents barely text, right? But they know the name of every plant on the farm.
right. That's what I'm saying.
Like
Like, yeah, they're still relevant, man. They still have knowledge.
if our interests are in things that are tangible.
True, but you still need to have. It's like you still have to have a library or an encyclopedia. You still have to have your history. You have to know where you came from to
Yeah.
appreciate where you're going, or to learn from mistakes. Like I love listening to older people talk. I really do
Me
because
too.
it's amazing. Like my dad's 80.
They're better storytellers also.
Yeah, my
Because
dad in his late 80s or mid. Yeah, he's like 85, 86. I think might be older, but like I sit back. I'm like shit, man. He came from the islands where they're bent a bathroom outside, no cars, to like he sees what's going on now.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is like amazing. So just to hear his perspective,
Yeah.
on things is gold.
I spent so much time with my grandmothers on that very principle. It's like you were here, you know, you started this thing at horse and buggy, and now we're at, you know, internet and your phone, and you know, things that were science fiction in the 60s, right, are all pretty much true now, and in some twisted way or another. And it was just so fascinating. But you know, I actually really pissed my dad off the other day because he's like, you don't know what happened back then. And I was like, okay. And I pulled out my phone, I turned on the voice recorder, and I was like, go. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm preserving it because I need this. Like, if I don't know what it was like, if I don't have the story, if I can't go back and reference the story, like, it'll be lost, right? And that's starting to really, really matter to me. I don't want to see the knowledge of the past lost. And this is why I'm really glad that I met the old men in the Philippines, because their specificity and proficiency with the language, with history, with interrelationship of what happened over time, like not just, you know, what's happened in the last 30 years, but what happened in the last, you know, 800 years, and where that influence came from, you know, before they arrived in the Philippines, before Europe arrived in the Philippines. It's like, it's so interesting to get it in context, because of course I got all of my histories from one source, right? Because everybody in North America has been repeating Dan's stories. and Dan got his stories from the group of people that made it to Stockton, right? So so it's interesting to like expand beyond that. And yeah, I wish I had so much more time and so much more ability to record it all, you know, just get them all talking. And like, it'd be amazing too to get some historians on the project, like verifying it.
That would be cool.
Well, they were talking. I remember Mal Morney and Romeo Macapagal were talking one night in Laguna about different movement styles through the Malay archipelago. And during the course of history and the course of that history and all the diaspora of the Malay people, there were different movement styles that were translated depending on where armies moved, where datus moved, and where you know, battles were fought. And it was really, really neat. But then I also started getting introduced to how European medieval martial arts arrived in the Philippines. And then there are records on all of those boats. So you could actually figure out which mercenaries trained at which schools in Europe and traveled to the Philippines with whose information from which of the original schools of fencing. Which is like,
wow.
It's just really interesting, right? Like if you've been pursuing this stuff for a long time and you're like, oh, so, because of course there was crossover, right? And we know that it happened, but until I was over there, like the idea of Eskrima and Arnis, like I didn't realize that, you know, those were Spanish and Italian, and like, you know, that I didn't see those things. Like we had a certain very specific idea. And then the Cali, of course, which is, you know, apparently a very recently made word. And it's just like,
according to some.
Yeah, well, yeah, according to that circle over there.
Yeah.
And you know, of course I got to look at their sources for their saying that, and it's like, oh, okay, that sounds really, really reasonable. So, but it's just really, even though I can't encompass all of it, I can't retain all of it, it's amazing to get the context. And I know that without people preserving it, it will fade out, you know?
Yeah, and it's just amazing to just be a part of something so rich and that's been around forever, and you're just like you're just having a small part in it. It makes you. That's what I think. Like it keeps you in check. Like that's why it keeps you humble, man. Like when people think they know it all or they're this or they're that, like dude, you're a fucking speck in a, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's amazing, isn't it, that like martial arts, the world of martial arts is so small. It's like once you start traveling around and like meeting people, going to like a lot of seminars, it's like it gets really small really quick, and we're still just a drop in the bucket, right? So yeah, but you can imagine how awesome it is to like go down to the Santo Academy and get like here.
Still on my bucket list.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's. I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome to be down there and surrounded by the history of it. But to get their history, and like these famous Filipinos who were associated to famous Filipinos in the old country, and then go to the old country and get those stories from descendants of those people, and it's just like, wow, okay, that's neat. It doesn't take anything away, right? It just adds. So, and if we're doing JKD, like, isn't that what we want to keep doing? It's
listen, Shawn, I'm gonna have to have you on here another time.
Sure, we went long
just to talk. No, we'll wrap it up. But that wasn't my cue. But I really want to have you on again and go into this JKD thing, because I think it's one of the most silly. I just hate how it's so many different camps, and so like I know what real JKD is. No, you don't. Yes, I do. He didn't do this. He did that. And I never understood it. I really wish there was like an organization that kind of not standardized, but just come to a consensus of, okay, guys, everybody's got their interpretation. Here are the principles. Here's what we know. Let's work this as a like prerequisite before you graduate into your own self-expression, without having all this fucking chaotic political bullshit.
Yeah, I would love to see that happen, and I probably wouldn't participate.
Oh fuck, I love it.
Well, no, because JKD, I love JKD concepts. The concepts. I am not a fan of Bruce Lee, the actor. I am a fan of the philosophies that Bruce Lee popularized. And insofar as Bruce Lee goes, I love what he did to move us forward from racism.
Yes.
Right? I love what he did to open our minds to exploring culture. But I think the most important thing about it, and also one of the worst, is that it's an invitation to personal expression.
Yep.
Right? Personal development with your own guidance methods, your own, like, it's all self-directed. And that part is the very, very best part. But it's also the reason why there's so much bullshit.
Yes.
Right? Because it's like, well, you can do whatever you want. And so people do. And, with varying levels of objectives. Right? Because some people just want to teach for the sake of being a teacher. Right? Like, I really wanted to teach because I saw how much value my teacher was giving to the people that appreciated him. And I was like, man, I would love to do that. But some folks want to run a really strong business, right? And so all of these things affect the final product. So even if we decided what JKD was and which of the drills were the drills, there's always going to be people saying, well, look at my camp. What about my camp?
Yeah.
Like,
That's it. That is the problem right there.
Yeah. Well, we all want people to look at us, I guess, and say it's good. We want that approval and the benefits.
A little bit of that is okay, because it creates a little bit of that competitiveness between us to push each other forward. But everybody just gets lost in I know what real JKD is, or I know what that it just gets fucking stupid after a while. It makes me to the point now. I don't even want to say that I do JKD
Uh,
or that I'm a JKD. I follow the print. Like I consider myself a JKD practitioner because my pursuit in martial arts is through a JKD lens.
yeah, yeah, and that's it. I mean, that's the best. The thing that's really great about it is that it frees you from getting bogged down in someone else's mission, right? And you could just be like, look, I'm training JKD. It's like this. I need to go this way, and that part's wonderful. I really appreciate that part. I wouldn't have been able to go to all these seminars and blend things up, right? If I didn't have that, I would, because I would have been pissing someone off. I was pissing people off anyway. But it's not because I wanted to, but just because I got excited about the next thing, right?
Yeah. And that's it. It's just keeping the flame of pursuit alive.
Yeah, because as soon as you feel stagnant, I mean,
it's over.
That's the worst feeling. It's the worst feeling. And I remember, like, I went through a few years of like just teaching and like really building my system, and then I had this year or two where I was like, this is kind of gross, like, and I needed to go like just find something, until I found something that
sparked.
Yeah, because I needed something to get me excited about training again, and going to the Inosanto Academy, going down to see Vunak when I did was great because it got me excited and hyped up again. Going down, what's that?
I remember watching his stuff. I was like, "Fuck, I love this." Panther Productions that fucking popped that VCR in the VCR.
Oh yeah.
Oh man,
the PFS stuff, man. It was just such a visceral, like, it's like slam on Beastie Boys and go.
Oh man, it was great.
but then with Inosanto, it's about volume of content. I want to get all of the content. I want to know all of the things. I want all the lists. I want to know how to do it. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, let's see if I can do it. Dog Brothers, yay! It's like, so, and then the next thing and the next thing, right? But every single time it's been like, I wanted more CLAT, and I was just looking for someone I could learn CLAT, like the whole thing from, because I knew I was getting
pieces
with Machapaya. I knew I was getting like Muay Thai and Lethwei mixed in with CLAT, and and it was just like, okay, but I want to have the actual thing, and there's nothing in Canada at the time, and then I saw a video of Maul, and like, that's the stuff, and the next thing you know, I trained with like six of the greats, right? And it's like, got to train with Chap, and I got to train with Jerry, and I got to train with Yayan, and with anyway, I go on Alvin Ganano. But and all the guys in Brunei, and so it's like, yeah, it's interesting. You gotta have something dragging you forward, or just stops being fun,
100%, man. That being said, I'm gonna start wrapping it up. But before I let you go, Shawn, I want to say I appreciate your work, your dedication, and what you've contributed to the community. I look at you guys, like the way you guys look at Phil, and that kind of caliber of elder in our communities. Like, not to call you you guys old, but I look at like you, Joey, like you guys are that next batch. You know what I mean? And like this whole thing with the Parley, this is really me. 2 reasons. Number 1, this is how I'm dealing with missing my friends, and number 2, this is my documentation of what us as martial artists are going through in this historic period in time. And
great choice.
And we're going to look back later, and the ones who are coming after us are going to know who we were as people, not just as Sifu or crew or whatever. So thank you for you were my first padded. I was so scared to get into stick fighting.
It was so funny because I'm sitting there going like, but you're badass. It's like, but it's a stick.
I had a really hard time like stick fighting and stick fighting, like fighting with the stick and like just concentrating on using the stick.
Right.
Like I didn't. It was a process for me, but because of guys like you, like I could have had a shit experience like I did at that other gym.
Yeah.
But there are people like you in our community who allow people like myself to step out of their comfort zone and do it knowing that like that with that older brother mentality, like I'm gonna show you the ropes, don't worry, you know, we're gonna help you out. These are important people in our society that we need. These are leaders, and this is what helps the growth. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. I always enjoy training with you, and I have to get you back again because I feel like we could talk way more.
Yeah, I was actually kind of shocked at how long we have talked. So
it didn't feel stale to me, man.
No, not at all.
All right, Shawn, thank you so much. Everybody can find you on your website here. I got Z-Academy of Martial Arts, and also on your Facebook page. The link is here. Guys, if you don't know who this man is, check him out. He's a wealth of knowledge in all kinds of disciplines. So once again, thanks for being on the Parley, Real People, Real Talk. Shawn, I wish you all the best, and I'll talk to you soon, man.
Thanks so much. Be well.
Take care.